Hello and welcome to the show. So today we have another challenge for you. This one is Landship racing. These are basically 6 cars that you don't normally see in races. The cars which are eligible are the Hudson Hornet, the Cadillac Eldorado convertible thing, the Lincoln Continental, the Chevrolet Bel Air, the Ford Country Boat, and the Chevrolet Impala. Yes, I think that's the only non-DLC one, so we had to allow that. My car, my Hornet, would be on the screen right now, but my computer had a whoopsie moment and was having some issues, so I've just got to use one of the standard kind of image things that we have. Now, before people start asking, this was done with some people off the forums. However, this is not going to be, or wasn't done as a versus the community, because I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if the cars would be kind of balanced, if there'd be one car in particular that dominated, or how it would work, because these are kind of unusual vehicles. And also, I expected there to be a bit of chaos with these, because, as I said, these are not the sort of cars that you would normally see racing. Our first race we did is at Laguna Seca, and well, it's a very odd sight as many cars blast into the first corner. Yeah, it's a little bit strange. I'm not sure if the replay might go a bit funny through there. The frame rate utterly died on my Xbox when I was recording it off there. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Well, I do know why, because there were 16 cars all trying to fit in the same bit of screen, and yeah, I'm not sure why that killed it. You know what I mean. Anyway, yes, there is a great variety of cars, and amazingly, everything was rather clean. One Impala got a little bit, I don't know, well, I assume he got assisted, not quite sure under what circumstances, got pushed out a little bit wide, but other than that, it was a very, very clean start. I mean, okay, there'd been a bit of scraping, a few people had aero damage, but there was nothing major. I was amazed by to have got through the first kind of half of the opening lap with this many kind of odd. That's not a normal sight you see on a racetrack, and there hadn't been any major incidences. Everybody ran wide through here, or nearly everybody. You can see in the background another 2 cars fell off the road. Yeah, these really aren't the most suitable of racing vehicles. Yes, the Hudson Hornet was a race car. It ran in NASCAR, but that's a little stock car. Sorry, but that's that's certainly not the same as what we're getting them to do now. And further back, there was a rather big train, and this is towards the back of the grid, and everybody, or back of the field, sorry, and everybody was being rather well behaved, which is as well behaved as 16 cars on a track in a racing game ever gets, really. Everybody's having a lunge into the final corner. There's a couple of Impalas across the grass, or not grass, dirt, whatever. There's a crazy taxi paint job that I really like. Yeah, the first lap, it was pretty damn busy. I mean, these cars are not the easiest things in the world to drive. As I said, I kind of nicknamed them Landships because they are huge, ungainly things. Yeah, they're not easy to drive, and I was expecting there to be more issues, but everybody was just about behaving themselves as as we come onto the second lap now. Coming up is probably overtake of the day, of the evening, of whenever it was a while ago we filmed this, as the Impala goes around the outside of one and then position himself onto the inside of the next one. That is a very good overtake, especially considering the cars that everybody's using here. Yeah, that's a pretty damn good overtake. I'll give him credit for that one. This is back towards the front now. I managed to get to like 4th or something, having started right near the back on the first couple of laps, which I was pretty damn pleased with. The Hudson Hornets are actually very, very competitive cars. I don't think anybody really quite had a clue what to do when building cars, so nobody knew really what was going to be fast and what wasn't. You can see in the background there, I managed to make my way past one of the Ford Country Boats. Yeah, the Hornets were very, very quick in a straight line. They were probably the again, I think these were upgraded to C-Class. Depends on how you built them, but the Hornets were certainly very, very quick in a straight line. This one here and me that's behind him were both pretty damn fast in a straight line. I think there was another Hornet further back as well. Yeah, these things are pretty damn fast when it comes to the straight line. They're all a little bit tricky to drive. I think a Cadillac at the moment is up in the lead. What have we got going? This is back kind of midfield, I think. The Lincoln, actually no, a little bit further back than that. The Lincoln, well, it was struggling. I think there's only one Lincoln. It's quite hard to see, actually. I'm trying to look around other cars as well. The Lincoln looks very similar to the Impala, kind of from a distance, but I think there was only one Lincoln in this race. Yeah, and it was struggling a little bit. As I said, I don't really know how it's going to balance out. While, of course, supposedly the cars equal PI, we all know that that's not quite how things work. This Lincoln was still putting up a fight. He was still trying. Yeah, it wasn't quite like directly at the back, wasn't so much struggling like that. But yeah, the Lincolns, I don't think they were a particularly good car for this. Although I'm glad to see the variety. Somebody has to try. It's still a very strange sight. See all of these kind of going up that bit. Yeah, it's odd, but never mind. It's a little bit further into the race, and we have the Doc Hudson is making his way through the field. We were worried that there are going to be loads of people around that paint job. Fortunately, I only think there was one. Doc Hudson Hornet. Yeah, you can see the speed of that thing, although there is a very fast Bel Air as well. Again, it's all down to kind of how the cars are built. Unfortunately, the Bel Air gets a little bit squeezed out here as they go over the crest. I doubt that's deliberate. It's just one of those things where you don't necessarily quite see where somebody is, and it's just an unfortunate sort of incident. The Hornet tries to go around the outside of the first corner. Yeah, it's a pretty damn tricky manoeuvre to do at the best of times. Although, yeah, the Hornets were pretty good cars. They were pretty competitive. There's a very big slide from a Bel Air in the background. Another thing to be wary of is I'm not sure how many people, I think a few people forgot to change the standard gearbox in these cars, which means you cannot have very many gears. I think the Bel Air standard only has 2 gears. And Cadillac, I think, only has 3. So yeah, you've got to remember to change the gearbox on these. That's a very, very important upgrade. Anyway, the Ford ran itself a little bit wide, and now the Bel Air is going to try and make up another place as well with a better run up towards whatever corner number that is. And then the Chevy kind of returns the favour that the the Hudson Hornet did on the straight. And still, wherever I looked in this race, I could find something going on, which is always nice, and it's kind of rare for some of the races we've had. Yeah, there was good racing kind of everywhere. Again, this is further back. The Lincoln is still battling with one of the Impalas. There are quite a lot of Impalas in this race, and that's purely because they are non-DLC. I didn't realise there's all these other cars with DLC. So yeah, you will see quite a few Impalas, but yeah, I think it's a fair. They weren't like dominant or anything, so yeah, it's fine running them. But yeah, there was action just going over. You can see up in front there is a Bel Air trying to make its way past. I think that was the Crazy Taxi again, and I was really surprised. I was really surprised by how much close racing there was with such odd cars. I mean, we've raced lots of things on this channel, and there was a lot of really good racing in these. There's closer racing in this than quite a lot of the versus the community stuff that we have done. The battle between the Country Boat and the Hornet was still carried on for most of the race. I think this is getting towards the end now. With it, I've never seen cars go too wide through. Well, should I say I've never seen cars like this go too wide through there. It normally ends in tears, but well done for giving each other space, and still they're going to go side by side. The Ford's on the inside here, but now he's going to be on the outside for the next corner. You're not going to go around the outside of there in a race car. There's a very sideways Impala in the background. Yeah, you're not going to go around the outside in a race car, let alone in a boat, basically. Coming up towards the final corner, though, this is a very good spot for overtaking on this track, and the Country Boat does kind of get the move done. And then there's the speed of the Hornets. I love how the wing is also halfway up the boot. But yeah, the Hudsons are pretty good cars. I like them for this. At the front, and I had caught up to the leader who was driving a Ghostbusters Cadillac, and I was having a tough time getting past. While my car was faster over the course of the lap, we both ran a little bit wide out of there. The Cadillac was actually better handling, which is an odd thing to say. I was expecting the Cadillac to be one of the trickiest cars. I think it's the heavier, or it's the heaviest standard. But amazingly, no, the Cadillac was better through the corners. Again, like depending on how it's built and everything. But yeah, I was having a tough time getting past the Cadillac. Primarily because this was the final lap, I think. And while the straight line speed of the Hornet is great for trying to catch up to somebody, around this track there is only really one long straight, and that is the start-finish straight, which we've already missed. So I had a bit of a lunge, I had a bit of a dive, going through the corkscrew. A little bit of a coming together. There wasn't any damage done, and I came off the worse anyway. And still, I'm trying to find a place to line up for an overtaking. They've only got one more corner to do it, which is into the sort of the last hairpin. However, I just can't hold the speed through these corners as the Cadillac can. Again, I wasn't expecting to say that in this kind of race session, so I wasn't close enough. I thought about having a look. I'm trying to have a look. I'm using all of the track, but I just can't quite get my car up the inside. And then, of course, once I get onto the straight, look at the speed of the Hornet, but it is just a run to the line, and the Cadillac manages to take the win. It was a very closely fought battle, that one, and it was amazingly a very successful race for these cars. I was really surprised at how clean and how much action there was going on in that first race. We move on next to Road Atlanta Short. Yes, I remember the name of that track. I don't know why I did it for a minute there. First corner here. It was a little bit busy. It was a little bit chaotic. I got caught on the outside where you really don't want to be when you're sort of coming in towards the first corner. A couple of cars got pinged off. I think they were two Impalas that tangled with each other. I'm not entirely sure on that front. Everybody's cutting the corner, trying to avoid each other going through there. It's an unfortunate part of this track. And then I'm fairly sure we were 3 wide at one point down there. Then there's the incidences that I was expecting kind of started kicking in. I believe a country boat got spun or spun out something or other middle of the pack. The problem is these cars are just so big. When you're all racing close together, it's really quite hard to kind of keep them all positioned. There's another bit of a big incident going on here as a Hudson Hornet manages to end up flipping and on its roof and then on its side in a really bad position. Yeah, that was one of those incidents where people just got squeezed in such a way that nobody had anywhere to go, and then there was somebody ended up on his roof. He did get collected later by one of the cars. I think that was spun going down the hill. They'd collected the Hornet on its side. So yeah, there was a few more incidents. I also managed to break my entire engine on a tiny tap on the back of the Cadillac, and I don't know how I managed that. I had like 25% damage from a tiny tap. Whereas there have been much bigger crashes where things haven't broken. Yeah, damage can be a little bit weird, but you know, yeah. Well, what can you do? There is still good racing going on in this. Yeah, ignore the Hornet that's trying to get up the hill and being an idiot and not got off the track because of I don't know why. The Impalas, they were still batting it out. There's me in the background in my smoking Hornet. Yeah, I mean, this was kind of more how I was expecting the first race to go, and this is why I did this as sort of a separate challenge rather than as a versus the community, because I was expecting it to be pretty chaotic as the Impala goes into the wall, and I took too much curb and didn't roll, I just spun, which is particularly useful. Yeah, this is pretty chaotic, this race, and this is kind of what I was anticipating them to be. But there was still good racing going on. There was still some close racing to be had. This was a fairly large train towards the back, I think. And again, as ever, when we do these large races, it's very hard to tell what cars have damage on them. I'm not sure about this Bel Air. It seemed pretty damn slow in a straight line. It could just be the way it was geared, or the way it was built, or it could just be that it had an awful lot of aero damage. And while you would think, oh, these cars don't rely on aero very much, and I would imagine that is true, however, when you get aero damage in Forza, you just lose an awful lot of straight line speed, whatever. So, yeah, again, it's another one of those things, how the damage system works in here. Yeah, this Bel Air was struggling a little bit. He'd done well up to this point, but the lack of speed in this car confused me. He might have had a standard gearbox, to be honest. That would probably explain why it would be slow if he hadn't changed that. There's another 2 cars go past him. Yeah, it's very important how you build these cars. When you're building something like this, gearbox is so important. It's very easy to forget as well, because it's not necessarily the first upgrade that you put in a car. Although if you're going to build a classic American car, because they often only had 4 or less gears. Yeah, gearbox, very important. You can't forget about that. Further back, this was the Battle of the Broken. There was quite a few broken cars in this one. I think this is for about 10th, the highest placed of the severely broken. I think almost everybody had some level of aero damage, because there's going to be scrapes when you race these cars, as they are humongous. I think the Hornet is probably the smallest of all of the cars here, and that's saying something. So yeah, I am battling with a Bel Air again. Both of us are quite heavily damaged. I think he's got completely ruined aero, and I have a fairly broken engine, and I somehow managed to get a move done going over the top of the hill. But yeah, it was still, to be fair, this is probably one of the closest races I've had for a while. Well, yeah, probably the closest race I had of the entire evening, despite the fact our cars were completely broken. As he's going to have a bit of a dive in the first corner. I'm going to be brave, try and hold it around the outside, and can just about get away with that. You don't want to be going too wide up here, and luckily I have just enough of a lead and he decides to back out of it so we can both go over the curb. That's a nasty corner at the top of the hill there. I like it. It's quite a fun corner to drive, but yeah, it's pretty tricky to get right, especially if you try to fit 2 cars through there as the Bel Air goes a little bit sideways going down the hill. Anyway, at the front we had some different cars leading this one. We had a Impala, the Crazy Taxi Impala in fact, was going to take the win, while a Bel Air was in second. I believe the Bel Air was a little bit quicker. It had been catching this Impala just a little bit per lap. It was taking it a while to kind of catch up to it. So yeah, we had, I'm just trying to think, we had 4 different cars take the top 2 spots in each race. So yeah, they were surprisingly balanced. They were more balanced than a lot of times we do like a certain class of racing, which I was very surprised by. It was actually very good fun. I mean, sure, there's going to be a few incidences and that's what I expected with these cars. But no, the racing was surprisingly fun. And yeah, it was interesting cars to race. They were certainly something different. So yeah, I recommend if you've got a few friends, build some of these things up if you have the DLC. And give it a go. They're great fun racing these things. They are incredibly silly. It looks very odd seeing all of these cars racing. But yeah, I do recommend you give it a go because it is rather good fun. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching. If people want to take part in this kind of stuff in the future, whenever we are doing one of these, I can't tell you now when we're doing them because I don't know. But if we are going to do this kind of sort of slightly odd racing, we'll be posting it on our forums under the official events section. I'll put a link into the description if you haven't signed up to our forums already. That is where we gather people, if you like, for this kind of event. It's just the easiest way of doing things. Trust me, it's just the simplest thing I can do with this to kind of keep track of everything. But yeah, that is it for today. So until next time, goodbye.